Imagine you're scrolling through your feed, dreaming about a European getaway, sipping wine in France or biking through Amsterdam. But what if I told you that starting in 2026, getting there just became noticeably harder? 6 major European countries are tightening their visa rules, and this could change how Americans explore, work, or even retire abroad. Stay with me, because this may directly affect your next trip, or your long-term plans overseas. And here's what most travelers don't realize yet. Let's make this personal. Picture a 45-year-old engineer from Texas who feels burned out from the daily grind and starts looking at Europe for better work-life balance. Last year, friends told him visas were fairly easy, but now, he discovers higher salary requirements, longer processing times, and tougher screening. Suddenly, his plan feels uncertain. Or think about planning a family reunion trip to Europe. Instead of simple travel, you now face new fees and digital approvals that add stress and cost. This is where things start to feel different. These are not distant policy changes. They affect real Americans who want to visit, work, study, or retire in Europe. For many Americans, Europe has always represented something special. It is seen as stable, culturally rich, and socially balanced. Some look to Europe for career opportunities. Others see it as a retirement haven. Some simply want the freedom to travel without complicated bureaucracy. But that image is quietly shifting. Another important point is that these changes are happening quietly. There are no dramatic announcements saying Europe is closing. Instead, adjustments are being introduced through technical updates, revised salary thresholds, new digital systems, and longer timelines. And most people only notice when it's already too late. Many people discover these changes only when they begin researching or submitting applications. That is why understanding what is happening now is critical. This video will keep things simple. First, we'll look at the big picture, why Europe is changing its immigration approach. Then we'll examine 6 countries making important shifts: Germany, France, the Netherlands, Denmark, Sweden, and Portugal. For each one, we'll explore the main drivers behind the changes, including labor needs, housing pressure, and how the Schengen system plays a role. Think of this as your roadmap. We'll combine real-world examples, verified data, and a neutral perspective so you can decide what this means for you. By the end, you'll have a clear answer to one question: is this the end of easy visas? Let's start with the why. Europe is not tightening rules randomly. It is facing a combination of aging populations, economic strain, and post-pandemic realities. And the numbers tell a powerful story. Across many European countries, birth rates remain far below replacement level. The European Union's average fertility rate sits around 1.5 children per woman, well under the 2.1 needed to maintain population size. This means fewer young workers are entering the labor force while the number of retirees continues to rise. That imbalance changes everything. An aging population creates pressure in several ways. Pension systems become more expensive. Healthcare systems need more workers. Governments must spend more on social services while collecting less in payroll taxes. Here's the uncomfortable truth. Immigration can help solve this problem, but only if newcomers are working, paying taxes, and contributing long-term. At the same time, governments are trying to avoid overloading public systems such as healthcare, housing, and education. So instead of opening doors widely, many countries are becoming more selective. Selective is the key word. They still want immigrants, but mainly those with skills that fill specific shortages and who can support themselves financially. Politics also plays a role. Immigration has become a major election issue in many European countries. Public opinion surveys regularly show large portions of voters favor stricter controls, and politicians respond to voters. As a result, governments are under pressure to show that immigration is managed, not uncontrolled. For Americans, this doesn't mean Europe is closed. It means the days of casual, low-barrier immigration are fading. Another factor often overlooked is competition between countries. European nations are now competing with each other, and with places like Canada, Australia, and the United States, for top global talent. When competition rises, standards rise too. Countries try to attract high-value migrants while discouraging lower-wage inflows. One of the biggest drivers behind the new rules is labor market strategy. European economies desperately need workers in fields like technology, healthcare, engineering, and skilled trades. But not just any workers. They want to ensure incoming workers truly match those needs. Let's look at Germany. Imagine an American software developer who moved to Berlin in 2024 under Germany's skilled worker system. His experience would look very different in 2026. Germany updates its skilled immigration framework by raising minimum salary thresholds for many work visas, now around 60,000 euros annually for most skilled positions. That single number changes everything. The goal is to ensure migrants are filling higher value roles and not competing directly with lower paid local workers. Germany's labor agency estimates the country needs hundreds of thousands of skilled workers each year. But here's the catch. Policymakers want those workers concentrated in shortage occupations. For you, this means that simply wanting to move is not enough. Your profession, experience level, and salary offer must clearly align with Germany's priority lists. Preparation now matters more than enthusiasm. There is also a stronger emphasis on credential recognition. Degrees earned in the United States may need formal evaluation to confirm equivalency with German standards, which adds time, cost, and planning. The upside is that highly skilled professionals may actually benefit from a clearer, faster pathway. Germany is trying to reduce uncertainty by focusing on specific profiles rather than general migration. France shows a similar pattern. An American nurse who applied for a French work visa in 2025 might now face higher residence permit fees and more documentation requirements in 2026. Small changes that add up quickly. France continues to seek healthcare professionals, engineers, and technical workers, while tightening access for lower-skilled positions. French government projections indicate the country will need large numbers of workers by 2030. Yet political pressure demands visible controls, so France walks a tightrope. The result is a two-track approach: targeted openness for needed skills, tighter screening elsewhere. For U.S. professionals, this may feel frustrating at first, but it also means that those who meet criteria can still succeed. The system becomes stricter, not impossible. Now to the Netherlands. Picture a U.S. marketing specialist recruited by a Dutch tech company. In 2026, the bar moves higher. The highly skilled migrant program raises monthly salary thresholds and expands compliance checks for employers. The Netherlands faces major labor shortages, particularly in IT and engineering. But housing shortages are just as severe. Cities like Amsterdam simply cannot absorb unlimited population growth. Dutch authorities are trying to slow population growth without hurting innovation. That balancing act drives the policy. Highly paid specialists remain welcome. Casual job seekers face higher barriers. Another important change in the Netherlands involves employer responsibility. Companies must prove they genuinely attempted to hire locally before recruiting abroad, which filters out many borderline cases. These labor-focused changes share one message: Europe still wants workers, but only in carefully defined categories. The second major force shaping new rules is housing and cost of living. This is where everyday life collides with immigration policy. Many European cities are experiencing rent increases, overcrowding, and long waiting lists for apartments. Governments are under pressure to protect affordability for residents. Denmark is a clear example. In 2026, Denmark raises salary requirements for work permits and increases certain application fees. The price of entry is literally rising. Copenhagen's housing prices have climbed sharply in recent years. Officials argue that limiting lower-income immigration helps slow demand in already tight markets. For an American family considering Denmark, this means higher financial thresholds before moving. Dreams now require stronger finances. Denmark is also focusing on integration outcomes. Authorities want immigrants who learn the language, enter the workforce quickly, and become long-term contributors. Visa rules are being shaped around that philosophy. Sweden's approach is even more cautious, and it surprises many people. Residency and citizenship timelines are being extended, and authorities are conducting stricter reviews of permit renewals. Some programs even encourage voluntary return migration through financial incentives. Stockholm faces one of Europe's longest housing waiting lists, often stretching close to a decade. 10 years for an apartment. Let that sink in. Policymakers believe slower immigration growth can help stabilize housing availability. Critics worry about the social impact, but the direction is clear: fewer approvals, longer timelines. For Americans living in Sweden, uncertainty can be stressful. Stability now feels conditional. This psychological effect is important. Immigration policy is not just about numbers. It shapes how welcome people feel. Portugal has become extremely popular with American retirees and remote workers. Perhaps too popular. Programs like the Golden Visa and digital Nomad residency drove large inflows, but rising rents in Lisbon and Porto triggered backlash from locals. In 2026, Portugal lengthens the path to citizenship and tightens investment-based residency options. Real estate purchases no longer guarantee residency the way they once did. the shortcut is gone. Portugal still welcomes foreigners, but it is steering them away from housing-driven migration and toward productive economic activity. For retirees, this means retirement planning must be more long-term and financially solid. Portugal is no longer a loophole. Housing pressure is not unique to Europe. Americans recognize similar debates at home. What's different is how directly these pressures now shape visa policy. The third major factor is the Schengen area itself. This is where everything connects. Once inside Schengen, travelers can move freely across most of Europe. But stricter nationals entry rules mean that the first point of entry becomes more important than ever. If Germany tightens work visas, it affects who enters the Schengen zone in the first place. If France raises fees or documentation, it affects your overall travel planning. Every country's decision ripples outward. In addition, the European Union is rolling out a new migration and asylum framework in 2026. While focused mainly on asylum processing and border management, it also strengthens screening systems and information sharing. Alongside this, the ETS system will require Americans and other visa-free travelers to obtain online travel authorization before visiting Europe. It is not a visa, but it adds an extra step. Most approvals will be fast, but travelers must plan ahead. Spontaneous trips become less spontaneous. Taken together, Schengen is not disappearing, but it is becoming more structured and monitored. So what does all this mean? Germany is raising skill thresholds. France is increasing fees and tightening categories. The Netherlands is boosting salary requirements. Denmark is lifting income limits. Sweden is extending residency timelines. Portugal is curbing investment-driven migration. The pattern is consistent. Europe is shifting from open-ended access to selective access. Does this mean the end of easy visas? Not exactly, but it does mean the end of casual visas. Europe still needs talent. It still welcomes students, professionals, entrepreneurs, and retirees. But it increasingly expects strong documentation, financial stability, and clear purpose. For Americans, preparation becomes essential. Strong resumes, verified credentials, and realistic budgets matter more than ever. Now the real question is yours to answer. Do these changes make you rethink your European plans, or do they push you to plan more carefully and strategically? Share your thoughts below, and as the world adjusts to these new rules, one thing is certain: global mobility is changing, and understanding those changes is the first step to navigating them wisely.